Have you ever stopped to really consider what it means that your body is made of atoms that were once part of exploding stars? That the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen you breathe, all originated not in some magical miracle, but in the thermonuclear chaos of dying stellar giants? It's not poetic license, it's astrophysics. You're not merely in the universe, you're made of it literally. A carbon-based life form, assembled by laws of chemistry, sculpted by billions of years of biological evolution, now standing upright and pondering its own existence. Let's be clear, you weren't chosen by some benevolent cosmic hand. That would imply the universe has preferences. It doesn't. It runs on law, immutable, elegant, impersonal, and yet, through those laws, here you are, a self-aware arrangement of stardust capable of decoding its own origin story. Statistically speaking, you're improbable, but scientifically speaking, you're inevitable. You're what happens when hydrogen burns for 13.8 billion years under the pressure of gravity and time. And that's fascinating. Not because it makes you superior, but because it makes you possible. Now, here's where things get interesting. We've learned to split the atom, send robots to Mars, and communicate across continents using invisible waves. And yet, most of us struggle to sit alone in silence without reaching for a device. That's not a moral judgment, it's an evolutionary artifact. Our brains are wired for pattern recognition and immediate gratification. They weren't optimized for inner peace. They were built to keep us alive in a savanna. But now that we're no longer fleeing lions, the challenge isn't survival, it's significance. And that brings us to this moment. Because when you look up at the night sky, and I hope you still do, it's easy to feel small. Just one person on one planet orbiting one star in a galaxy of hundreds of billions in a universe with trillions of galaxies. But small isn't insignificant. After all, the atom is small, and look what it can do. Your brain 3 pounds of electrified meat contains more neural connections than there are stars in our galaxy. And somehow, within that dense network of electrochemical activity arises thought, emotion, curiosity, wonder. Those aren't bugs in the system, they're features of being conscious matter. So when you ask, do I matter? You're asking the wrong question. The real question is, what will I do with the matter that matters? Because here's the truth. The universe doesn't need you to be a genius, or a prophet, or an influencer. It simply needs you to be aware that your choices ripple outward, like gravity, shaping the orbits of those around you. Aware that your behavior, however mundane, goes across time in ways no equation can fully predict. You don't have to save the world, but you do have to participate in it. You see, the cosmos didn't script your life. It handed you raw ingredients and a laboratory called Earth. And now, the experiment is yours to conduct. You were not born to obey a script written by those who came before you. You were born to analyze the data, challenge assumptions, and ask better questions. Just like Galileo did. Just like Curie did. Just like every human who looked up and wondered, what else is true? And here's the part they don't tell you in school. The universe doesn't care what you believe, it only cares what's true. That's what science is, a tool for distinguishing fact from fiction, reality from rhetoric. But science is not cold. In fact, it's the warmest invitation the universe offers to understand how things work, and in so doing, discover how we work. There is poetry in entropy, beauty in biology, grace in gravity, and responsibility in knowledge. You know now that you're not separate from the universe, you're a function of it, so act like it. Don't treat nature as a resource to be consumed. It's your relative. You share DNA with mushrooms. Your body operates at the mercy of ecosystems you cannot see. The bees pollinate the crops that feed the species that nourish your body. This isn't spirituality. This is ecology. And in the grand equation of existence, we've reached a turning point. We are the first species we know of that can understand its own extinction and maybe prevent it. The dinosaurs didn't see that asteroid coming, but we can detect near-Earth objects, model climate futures, edit our genes, and communicate across the globe. So what's stopping us? It's not intelligence, it's alignment. We've learned to harness the forces of nature, but we've yet to master our own fear, ego, tribalism. These are not cosmic forces, they're human ones, and they're far more dangerous than gravity. Because while gravity binds galaxies, fear tears civilizations apart. So here's a radical thought, grounded not in faith, but in physics. If particles can remain entangled across vast distances, maybe so can we, not by magic, but by empathy, by reason, by the shared recognition that we're all made of the same stuff, obeying the same laws, inhabiting the same pale blue dot. This doesn't mean we all need to agree. It means we need to agree that disagreement doesn't make someone unworthy of dignity. Because if the universe can generate 118 known elements out of just 3 building blocks, protons, neutrons, electrons, surely we can generate some compassion out of 8 billion versions of the same genome. The math is on our side. So what now? You have consciousness. You have time. You have a universe that has, through no mystical intention, given you the rarest gift of all, awareness. What will you do with it? You could numb it, distract it, sell it for likes, or you could use listen, to learn, to teach, to build systems that reward inquiry instead of obedience, to live not as a passive consumer of reality, but as an active participant in its construction. That's not idealism, that's cosmological pragmatism. Because entropy is inevitable, but so is emergence. So rise not as a savior, but as a signal, not as someone who knows, but as someone who questions better. The universe doesn't play favorites, but it does reward persistence. And in a universe governed by physics, the most improbable force of all is choice. You can't change the speed of light, but you can change the speed of your compassion. You can't alter gravity, but you can choose what kind of weight your actions carry. And if enough of us do that, not perfectly, but sincerely, we may just tilt the trajectory of this planetary experiment in a direction more aligned with what's possible, not what's familiar. That's not destiny. That's physics with intent. So next time someone asks if you believe in miracles, tell them no. Tell them you understand them, because the most miraculous thing about the universe is that it allowed itself to become aware of itself. And it did so through you. Now act like it. It's easy to romanticize the idea of destiny, to imagine that the universe whispered your name across time and appointed you to some grand purpose. But science doesn't work through sentiment. It works through sequence, structure, and symmetry. And yet, the outcome feels no less poetic. Consider this. Of all the possible configurations of matter, energy, and chemistry, the one that resulted in you is so statistically improbable, it borders on miraculous. But it's not a miracle. It's a chain reaction of stars forming, stars dying, planets coalescing, molecules bonding, cells dividing, and consciousness emerging. This isn't randomness. It's the lawful unfolding of possibility. Your DNA is a historical archive written in nucleotides, a record of every replication, mutation, and adaptation since life first blinked awake in the primordial soup. You are not a standalone event. You're a narrative, a chapter in the epic story of life told in proteins and probability. And that brings with it a responsibility. Because to be conscious in a universe that mostly isn't is a profound rarity. Most of the cosmos is cold, silent, indifferent. Hydrogen drifting through interstellar space, black holes devouring light itself. But on this speck of rock we call Earth, matter became curious. It began asking, what am I? Where did I come from? What happens next? The fact that such questions can even be asked is extraordinary. That they're being asked by evolved primates who once feared fire and now split atoms, that's unprecedented. You don't need superstition to find meaning. You just need understanding. And once you understand how rare you are, not because of favoritism, but because of physics, then meaning becomes a choice. We tend to look outward when we want to feel awe, We build telescopes, probe galaxies, chase the afterglow of the Big Bang, and rightly so. The universe is majestic, but sometimes we overlook the fact that looking itself is an awe-inspiring act. The photons that left a star a billion years ago now end their journey in your retina. That's not metaphor, that's optics. And every time that happens, your brain doesn't just receive light, it creates meaning from it. Interpretation is not an accessory to consciousness. It is consciousness. You're not just witnessing the universe, you are part of the mechanism by which the universe knows it exists. That's not spiritual, that's neurological. That's cognitive science intersecting with cosmology. So what does it mean to live as the cosmos aware of itself? It means understanding that everything you do is a continuation of physical law. Your thoughts patterns of electrical activity shaped by your biology are no less natural than the orbit of a moon. Your emotions, your decisions, your sense of self all arise from the same laws that govern gravity, thermodynamics, and entropy. This doesn't diminish your humanity. It reveals it. Because if consciousness is a product of physical processes, then the ethical questions we wrestle with about justice, dignity, compassion are not abstractions. They're emergent phenomena. They arise from real systems with real consequences for real beings, and that makes them worth studying, worth refining, worth living. We are the only known species that can not only change its environment, but understand that it's doing so. The only one that can simulate future outcomes in its mind and choose to act differently based on imagined scenarios. We are predictive engines wrapped in flesh. But with that foresight comes a paradox. We can see what's coming, and sometimes we still fail to act. That's the human condition awareness paired with inertia. It's not a flaw, it's a frontier. And every time someone overcomes that, inertia chooses growth over comfort, learning over pride, action over apathy, cosmos becomes slightly more awake. Because consciousness isn't static, it's scalable. And the more people choose awareness, the more coherent our species becomes. Like atoms aligning in a magnetic field, a critical mass of intentionality can reshape what we once thought unchangeable. Culture, values, systems, futures. This isn't mysticism. It's systems theory. It's neuroscience. It's sociology backed by mathematics. Feedback loops, emergent order, dynamic equilibrium. So let me be clear. You're not special in the sense that the universe revolves around you, but you are significant in the sense that you can revolve around an idea and choose to act on it. That's power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to integrate, to synthesize knowledge, to question assumptions, to reshape paradigms. That's what science has always done. And that's what you, as a cognitive node of this universe, are capable of if you choose to be. You were never meant to be a spectator. The universe didn't spend billions of years forging your neurons just so you could scroll endlessly, argue aimlessly, or live reactively. It gave you the tools to build meaning, to model reality, to refine your understanding, not once, but continually. You don't need certainty to begin. You need curiosity. And when curiosity combines with humility, science happens, progress happens, you happen. So ask better questions, demand better answers. Think critically, but also compassionately. Because the great challenge of our age is not just to survive, but to do so with grace, with clarity, with collective insight. And here's the truth that stares at us from every telescope. We are alone, and we are not. We may not have found intelligent life elsewhere, but we found each other. 8 billion minds, all trying to make sense of their place in a 13.8 billion-year-old story. That's enough to begin. So stop waiting to feel ready. The universe didn't wait to feel ready before igniting fusion in its first stars. And you, Stardust, that things don't need permission to start becoming the very thing evolution designed you to be: adaptive, aware, aligned. You don't have to believe in magic, because reality, when properly understood, is more magnificent than anything we've ever imagined. And the best part? The story isn't finished. You're still writing it with every thought, every word, every action. The only question that remains is, will your chapter be passive or intentional? Will your time on this earth be noise or signal? Because the universe has already done its part. It made you possible. Now it's your move. And if you ever find yourself asking, what difference can one person make in a universe so vast, so ancient, so impersonal? Remember this. The universe is not impersonal because it's indifferent. It's impersonal because it's consistent. It applies its laws everywhere, equally, to galaxies, to atoms, to neurons. There is no exception clause for your ambitions, your fears, or your comfort zones. Gravity doesn't care if you're tired. Thermodynamics doesn't bend for sentiment. But that's exactly what makes your actions meaningful, because you operate within those constraints, despite those constraints, and still find ways to choose hope, to pursue truth, to reach across divisions, and create meaning in an uncaring cosmos. That is not weakness. That's defiance through intelligence. The very act of living consciously in a universe governed by unconscious forces is an act of cosmic resistance. You are not a random glitch in the fabric of space-time. You are one of the few known configurations of matter that can override instinct with insight, that can weigh options beyond survival, that can imagine futures not yet born and build toward them. No other force in the known universe does this. Rocks don't wonder. Rivers don't regret. Galaxies don't grieve. But you do. And that capacity, while uncomfortable, is your superpower. Let's be honest. Thinking is hard. Feeling deeply is risky. Facing truth is often inconvenient. But without those things, we regress into noise, into reaction, into entropy. And entropy always wins unless energy is consciously applied to reverse it. That's what life does. That's what you can do. You are a local decrease in entropy, a temporary configuration of order in a universe predisposed to chaos. And what you do with that order, how you direct it, how you sustain it, how you share it, matters, not because it's written in destiny, but because it's written in physics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed, which means every thought you generate, every word you speak, every act of empathy you perform, it all gets converted into momentum, into influence, into cultural inheritance. You are both the recipient and the transmitter of energy. So the real question is, what signal are you sending? Is it noisy reactionary, impulsive, self-serving? Or is it signal thoughtful, curious, collaborative? This is not just a metaphor. This is how the universe functions. Noise drowns coherence. But signal builds galaxies. Signal arranges molecules into mitochondria, chords into symphonies, people into civilizations. You may not be able to bend space-time, but you do bend the trajectory of possibility every time you think critically, act consciously, and contribute coherently. That's how the future is shaped. Not by fate, by feedback loops, and feedback only works when you're listening. So if the universe is speaking, and I assure you, it does so through data, through relationships, through patterns. It whispers through biology, through blackbody radiation, through coral bleaching, through migration patterns, through melting glaciers and market trends, and the widening gyres of political chaos. These are not anomalies, they're messages. And our job is not to panic, it's to decode. Because the same mind that mapped the human genome, split the atom, and landed a rover on Mars is capable of rethinking economics, ethics, education, and equity, we stop clinging to legacy models of power and start aligning with reality. Science does not fear being wrong. It fears not asking better questions. So let us ask, what kind of species do we want to be? One that extracts until collapse? Or one that evolves by choice, not by catastrophe? One that seeks control through dominance? Or one that seeks understanding through participation? These aren't abstract dilemmas. These are design decisions. And they will be made either by default or by design, either by inertia or by intention. That's where you come in. You don't need a PhD in astrophysics to make a difference. You just need to live like your actions are part of a cosmic equation, because they are. Your ethics matter. Your integrity matters. Your willingness to be wrong matters. Not because you'll be famous, but because you'll be real. Real in a world of replicas. Whole in a culture of fragments. There's no algorithm for authenticity. No shortcut to wisdom. But there is a direction: curiosity, compassion, courage. Courage to say, I don't know, but I'm learning. Courage to stand up, not just for your tribe, but for truth even when it's inconvenient. Courage to build bridges where others draw boundaries. And most of all, courage to be present, to feel deeply, to question freely, to listen carefully, to act wisely, because this is how civilizations rise. Not from brute force, from coherence. From individuals choosing signal over noise, pattern over panic, contribution over consumption. And when enough people do that, not perfectly, but persistently paradigms shift, we have models for this. Plate tectonics wasn't obvious until it was. Germ theory faced ridicule until it saved lives. General relativity made no practical sense until GPS proved Einstein right every second of every day. Ideas that once lived in notebooks now guide satellites, surgeries, and symphonies. So ask yourself, what idea is waiting inside you? What signal is the universe trying to send through your neural network, through your experience, through your singular vantage point on this pale blue dot? You may never be Galileo, or Hypatia, or Tesla, but you are a node in the same system, a carrier of the same spark, a participant in the same grand unfolding. And the next great leap for our species may not come from a laboratory. It may come from a living room, a conversation, a realization that the universe didn't stop evolving when it made use it, continues evolving through us. That is not mysticism. That is emergence. That is evolution. That is the moment you realize being human is not a fixed state. It's a function, a dynamic equilibrium between chaos and order, between instinct and intention, between biology and belief. And what you do today nudges that equilibrium forward or backward, toward coherence or collapse. So when the temptation to withdraw arises to tune out, give up, numb out, or check out, remember this: the universe did not go through 13.8 billion years of gravitational collapse, chemical bonding, genetic mutation, planetary formation, and cognitive evolution just so you could scroll. It did all that so you could choose, so you could respond, so you could be not a byproduct of time, but a co-author of it. You are not decoration in the cosmic landscape. You are data, direction, design. You are signal, so send it clearly. Send it consistently. Send it with the full power of a brain that knows its origins and dares to shape its destiny. Because once you realize the universe is not something that happened to you, but something happening through you, everything changes. And if you're still here, still listening, still wondering, you're already doing the work. So what now? You know the science, you know the odds, you know that your existence is not the result of superstition or sentiment, but of statistical improbability made real through physics, chemistry, and time. You know, you're made of the same materials as stars, that your consciousness is a temporary state of ordered energy capable of modeling the universe that birthed it. And you know this isn't metaphor, this is measurable. Your carbon came from ancient supernovae. Your thoughts ride on electrochemical impulses. Your voice ripples the air with vibrations governed by wave mechanics. Your heartbeat is a metronome for a species walking upright on a sphere orbiting a mediocre star. It's all very ordinary, and yet utterly extraordinary. Because while the laws that produced you are universal, the way you express them is not. You have agency. Not infinite, but meaningful. You can encode memory, you can project vision, you can cooperate across time and space through symbols we call language, currency, science, and story. That's not divine intervention. That's emergent order. That's the capacity of complexity to self-organize, to iterate, to learn, You are a chapter in that process of living, breathing experiment in conscious evolution. And like any experiment, it can succeed or fail. The future isn't guaranteed. The cosmos doesn't owe us continuity. It offers only the raw ingredients, energy, entropy, and time. The rest is up to us. That means if we destroy ourselves through ignorance, it will be a tragedy, but not a cosmic one. The universe will go on, expanding, cooling, rearranging particles into new configurations. But if we persist, if we mature, then consciousness will persist. Meaning will persist, inquiry will persist. And that might be the most valuable force in the known universe. A force that doesn't bend space or shatter atoms, but one that asks questions, recognizes beauty, feels empathy, fights injustice, pursues truth. We call it being human. Not as a status, but as a practice. So what does it look like to practice being human scientifically, cosmically, coherently? It looks like this. It's choosing integrity over convenience, even when no one's watching. It's explaining what you know without condescension and admitting what you don't know without shame. It's resisting the urge to retreat into tribes and instead leaning into our shared biology. It's understanding that your brain, like everyone else's, is riddled with biases, but also capable of self-correction. It's recognizing that awe is not weakness. It's a recalibration of Scalia neurological response to encountering something larger than yourself. And in this universe, there will always be something larger. That's not humbling, that's motivating. Because when you truly grasp how vast it all, Isho ancient, how intricate, how relentlessly lawful, you don't shrink, you rise to match the moment. Not because you're destined to, but because you're designed to. Evolution didn't stop with the opposable thumbs. It continues in neural networks, in cultural systems, in moral frameworks. We are the first species capable of editing its own code, of modeling its own demise and averting it, of defining progress, not just in material terms, but in ethical ones. That is a turning point unlike any other in cosmic history. And you're alive during it. You are breathing borrowed oxygen on a planet spinning at 0 miles per hour, orbiting a star, racing through a galaxy at 500,000 miles per hour, all while participating in the only known form of reality that reflects on itself. This is your moment. Not to be perfect, but to be present. Present to the responsibility of consciousness. Present to the beauty of science. Present to the limits of certainty and the necessity of humility. Present to the fact that the universe, vast and uncaring as it may seem, has nonetheless enabled you to care. So what will you do with that power? Will you weaponize it, or will you harmonize it? Will you consume more signal, or will you become the signal? Will you complain about the noise, or will you generate new tones? Will you ask only what the universe owes you, or will you consider what you owe it for the atoms, for the awareness, for the improbability of being here at all? Because in the end, the universe doesn't hand out meaning. It hands out matter. And meaning is what matter does when it wakes up. So wake up, not to escape reality, but to engage with honestly, intelligently, humbly. Wake up not as a prophet, but as a participant, not with dogma, but with data. Not with certainty, but with sincerity. Because the greatest discoveries, the ones that reshape civilization, rarely begin with I know. They begin with I wonder. So wonder bravely, question relentlessly, contribute freely. And live not just as a collection of cells surviving a few decades, but as an agent of coherence in a universe that tends toward disorder. Because entropy may be inevitable, but so is emergence. And you were never ordinary. You were always necessary. Not as a chosen one, but as a choosing one. So go choose wisely and let the cosmos take note not of your perfection, but of your participation. Because in the end, that's what evolution remembers. Who showed up?